Welcome to the Fail Forward podcast. The purpose of this podcast is change the negative stigma around failure into a positive. Failure is only a negative if we do not learn from it and we give up. Welcome back to the Fail Forward podcast. The point of this podcast is to help people overcome the fear of failure so they can live their goals and dreams. So today, big episode talking about addiction, drug addiction, other addiction. It's something that I've not broadcasted a lot through this podcast. Most of my family, friends and people around me know this, but I've suffered from drug addiction for quite a long period of my life. Talking about in an earlier episode about me having the freedom to talk freely has really helped inspire me to have this episode. And if you get to know me on a personal level, you will know that I wear my heart on my sleeve. Anything I'm thinking, I say. And I've always shared my difficulties with drugs and business because I've wanted to try and help other people feel comfortable to be able to talk. But I've never openly talked about it on this podcast. And I thought, why not? Why am I not doing that? And I don't know why, but for now, I feel like it's the right time to talk about it. I have been clean for 3 years. I had a relapse when the business went under. I think addiction is kind of like a parasite. It really does. It does feed on your emotions, and when it does get you when you're at your lowest. And obviously when the business went under, I was at my lowest. Previous to that, it was 6 years before that. So I'd done 6 years before that. But I've been clean for 3 years. I now don't drink. And what I'd been doing over that 6 years between the me quitting and having my daughter and my son is I'd still been drinking. And I think alcohol for me was always the gateway. And I have always felt a little bit ashamed about being an addict, but I think it's helped shape me as a human being. And I'm not scared to say it anymore, but I'm certainly not proud of it. But I feel like it's something that needs to be talked about because a lot of people will feel shameful about addictions. And I don't think addictions are just drugs. I think people get addicted to fitness. They get addicted to coffee, caffeine. They get addicted to food, all sorts of things, sex, pornography. There's so many addictions, and it catches us all. So I want to make people aware that if you are feeling like you've got an addiction, there's something in your life that's not serving you or creating an issue or you're not feeling quite happy about, the best thing you can do is go and get help. One of the greatest things we have in this country is our NHS. It is, whether people are feeling stressed about it or not, we have a great NHS. We have lots of advice out there, lots of ways that we can gain advice. We have the SITS Advice Bureau. We have so many other gateways to be able to get advice and help from different people. So if you are feeling like you are struggling with an addiction to anything, then I implore you to go and actually seek advice and get help. I know my wife, Sarah, she is an absolute angel. She has been my absolute rock for 19 years of my life now. And if it wasn't for Sarah, I don't know whether I'd have been able to get out of my addiction. And I've always asked her, so Sarah, all those times of me being an addict, why did you stay with me? And her answer was, Henry, you were always trying to get help. I think I've seen in the last 10 years, probably 12 different counsellors. And each counsellor asked me different things. And some I was in tears with and some I wasn't. I didn't have a tragically bad upbringing. I didn't have anything bad that happened to me. Yes, I did always have, there's some ups and downs of childhood. And I think everyone can resonate with that. We always have different things. Everyone has different things that go well and don't go so well. But there's no underlying issue of why I should be addicted. I just like to go out and have a good time as a teenager, as in my early 20s. And then that actually spilled over into my later adult life. And when I was going through a lot of stress with the business, it was, as I say, it was like a parasite and it just kept biting me on the arse all the time. And going and seeing counsellors helped. And I remember there was one counsellor I saw specifically, and we worked a lot on mindful meditation. We did a lot of meditations where I put my demons on a bus and I watched them drive off. And that was one of the real turning points for me. And it helped. And that's the reason why Sarah was persistent, patient, stubborn, may I say, and stayed with me for all those years. But I don't think I want people to think negatively about addiction, because it's something that creeps into a lot of people's lives. And one thing I learned is addiction is progressive. It doesn't just heal. You don't just wake up one morning and suddenly you decide that you don't want whatever it is that you're addicted to. It needs some time and effort to be able to solve. It needs some time to be taken. It needs some effort to be put in to be able to, and probably support. I remember one of the things that Sarah did for me, which at the time I really was unhappy with, is she told my parents, and I really didn't want them to know because I felt ashamed about it. But actually it was one of the best things, because I was so fearful about what they'd think and what they'd say. And actually my parents were so supportive. My sister was so supportive, my family, my friends, and some of my best friends, Guy and Adam, if you're listening to this, thank you so much, and to my family, because having that support network around me and being open and telling people that I was having a difficult time definitely helps. So if you're going through addiction and you're ashamed and you're feeling down about it, go and tell somebody, go and tell your friends, tell one person, and then let it flow. And if people talk about you, fuck them, because the only way to get out of it is by seeking help and putting the yards in to try and work out whatever it is, because addiction does get a lot of people, and you shouldn't be ashamed of it. You should be able to get in a position where you can get help from it. So all in all, I ended up getting myself out of it. And I've been clean now for 3 years, but I love my coffee. So one of the things I did at the beginning of 2020 is I gave up alcohol, and I had never really drank coffee through my teens and through my 20s and into my 30s. And a few years ago, when I gave up alcohol, I found coffee, and I was drinking 4 to 5 cups a day. And coffee is a drug as well. It is a drug. It's a legal drug. Coffee is a substance that you can get addicted to. There are people that are addicted to coffee. And last year, I wanted to check in and just flex my addictive side of my personality. And I actually gave it up for 4 months just to make sure, just to check in with myself, to ensure that there was nothing else creeping in, nothing else going to creep in. Because the thing is when you've been an addict, you are always an addict. The addiction never goes away. You're just a recovering addict. And it's always good to check in and make sure that you're still on top of it, not to be pushing away any thoughts. So I quit coffee for 4 months. I now drink coffee again, but back down to 2 cups, whereas before I was like 4 to 5 cups. So it's always good to check in with your addiction. So really, this episode was just about reaching out to anybody that might be sort of suffering slightly from addiction. Also, just to be open and honest with my audience about the struggles and the times I've had, because this is a Fail Forward podcast. It is all about failing forward and taking those experiences in life and learning from them, which is what I'm talking about today. Is I had some tough times, I had some experiences, I had an addiction, but I've learned from that, and now I want to try and help and spread that with as many people as I possibly can, to try and help people. And that's what we're doing all the time, is we're failing forward, we're learning, we're experiencing, and we're moving forward. If anyone's suffering from addiction, if anyone wants some help, if anyone wants me to be the person they talk to, then please drop me a message and I'll happily jump on a phone call, jump on a Zoom call, or if you're close to me, meet you for a coffee. So thanks all for listening to the Fail Forward podcast. I'll see you next time.